Welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and we're super excited to have Bryan Finster with us today on the show. And and so we have basically a Deming quote that started on LinkedIn as a kind of a conversation back and forth that we're going to turn into an episode because it just found the content so rich. But before diving into that topic about, is it cruel to have a goal for a team without having a method? And maybe a bunch of side topics with that. Let's hear a little bit about Bryan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I've been a software engineer for 25 years or so. I've worked for Walmart for 19 years, but I recently left there and currently working for Defense Unicorns, working with Platform One for the Air Force to build a secure delivery platform there so that we can actually do continuous delivery in a secure environment. And I'm a passionate advocate for the more humane working environment and better outcomes for the business that comes with continuous delivery.
Right on, right on. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I guess let's jump into the topic. So I'll give a little history of how it started, then we can start the conversation. So I've been on this, I was doing a bunch of Deming quotes on LinkedIn posts, and one of them was a goal without a method is cruel, right? And so, and then you said, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And then the follow-up conversation is, so how can we provide teams a method for the goals we have without squashing self-organization, creativity, ownership, experimentation, that kind of stuff? So what's your take, Bryan?
Well, I think there's two parts of it. There's ways of working methods and there's tools methods. Now, I've been working in platform for a number of years now, and before that, I worked on product teams, delivering to internal customers, but still, real products. And when I was on a product team, I wanted as much freedom as I could possibly get to do anything I wanted. So I wanted to be able to choose whatever language, whatever tools, whatever thing I wanted to use, because I'm the most important thing. Well, I also worked in a large enterprise, and then when I moved to platform, I was quickly informed about the scaling cost of that. That you really, from a tools point of view, it's really good to have good options available, right? But it's also a limited set of options because we can't afford to support every option that's possible. Plus, when you're talking about trying to integrate and get information and help the entire enterprise versus just having a gaggle of teams just doing their own thing, the costs start spiraling. And so the very first DevOps conference I went to, I saw a presentation by Ticketmaster, and they were talking about anchors and buoys. There's anchors that are non-negotiables, and this could be processes, compliance, whatever, right? There's buoys where this is well supported within our environment, and if you stay within here, things will be easy. And then if you go outside the buoys, then you're on your own. We can't support you. And you really need to be very diligent about limiting your blast radius as you go outside those buoys. And hey, if you discover something new that's useful, we might extend the buoys to include it. Can't promise you though. It's got to fit in with the overall business plan. And so from a tools perspective, that's the way I look at that, really, is that there's a balance, right? Try to supply good tools. Don't just say all people will code Java and everybody's going to use, NetBeans, right? I mean, be flexible, but not too flexible, right? And then from a process point of view, I mean, frankly, there's known good practices out there for the basic stuff we need to get our jobs done. And the thought I had when I wrote the response, I wholeheartedly agree, is that, and I just gave a talk at DevOps Enterprise Summit about how to misuse and abuse door metrics. And in that talk, I was talking about people are trying to manage to metrics, even though people will tell them not to do it, but they're still judging teams on metrics instead of using the metrics as health indicators. And then supplying teams with information about good practices they may not be aware of for things like how to decompose work, how to actually do continuous integration, how to test better. The basic skills that honestly most teams are really struggling with just to stand up CI before they can do CD. And so, yes, it's really good to give teams a goal around some of those low-level things around improvement, as long as you also give them good practices that they can learn and build on.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, and I think maybe one way to if it's possible to modify Deming, without being someone attacking me, is like he didn't say a goal without the method is cruel or something like that, where it's
Right.
like you give, like, okay, here's I think what he, my heart in trying to understand what he's saying is like, I think he's going after like a leader saying, hey, we're gonna have no bugs and we're gonna release every day. Good luck. See you later. I'll come back in a month and I hope to see it working well for you,
Yeah, and the takeaway I have from that is similar, right? Which is,
Yeah.
hey, the goal we have is no bugs. Why do we have bugs? Let's look into that and see what in our system of delivery is. How do we help each other reduce the number of bugs, right? And it's not you guys don't do this. It's like, hey, what help do you guys need? That's the intention around that quote from my perspective.
So in our environment, if we go back to the tools analogy, in our environment, any tool is allowed, but the teams self-organize, right? And so I think what ends up happening is you get retrospectives that talk about the difficulty and the cost increases. And so I think in both scenarios, they happen naturally, right? The team retrospects towards a single technology. And I've seen this, right? So initially the technologies kind of went all different directions. And then lately they've been converging. And it's been kind of the choice of the team. So like, I don't know if we necessarily need to, but I guess we can say providing the tools in which to refine and develop the method might be the method in which he's talking about. So, retrospectives and learning and those sorts of things, maybe the methods to develop the processes to reach the goal, right? But I don't think it necessarily needs to be handed down or necessarily developed by the team. I think, it is, it's just when I think people without the appropriate tools are given a direction or a goal and then, left to their own devices, like you said, could be really
well. And I think you have to look at the context of scale, right? If you're working in a relatively small company with just a few teams, and different teams are using different tools, but they can still talk to each other because we haven't decided which one we really like for everybody.
Yeah.
And then we need to change something. It's a relatively light lift to go and change.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're talking about the scale of 1,000 teams, now you have 1,000 different solutions to the same problem. You can't cross-train anything. People can't go to another team without learning an entirely new infrastructure for how to deliver before they get to what to deliver. You're talking about that sort of scale. You've got to limit your tool set. You have to make it easy to train and onboard people. The goal there is how do we get people into production as fast as possible when they join the organization?
Yeah. So I'm reminded of Fred George's Programmer Anarchy. They just say, put a service bus in place and then let everybody do what they want. I've heard of that succeeding in certain environments but again, I don't think that anybody is, maybe the anchor to all of it is a service bus, for example. Then there's the possibility that as long as you agree on how to communicate, you can all approach the same goal in different ways and still make it cost effective. That's the theory. Like I haven't talked to him about it per se, but I just find that an interesting kind of counterpoint to the discussion, right?
Yeah, and the things that I'm thinking about it, I think it depends. Also it's important to know what tools we're talking about. So when I talk about a limited tool set, what we did at Walmart was we started off with just a whole bunch of Jenkins instances that were all different, and Anthill Pro, and all these different ways of delivering, and then complete chaos when it came to whoever wanted to pick what database technology.
Yeah.
And how do you make that so that you can reduce the cognitive load on the team so you don't have to understand that stuff? We got to centralize it.
Yeah.
And so what do? You come up with, we need a document database, we need a SQL database, a couple of options there. We need a delivery platform that can meet all of their needs for delivery. And sure, we'll have to train them on the new platform. We'll have a platform that meets all their needs for delivery. And by the way, it allows us to be more compliant and secure by limiting the choices, right?
Yeah.
But it needs to be limited but flexible enough so that they can do their job seamlessly and reduce the cognitive load at the same time. I don't need to worry about how to stand up something so I can deliver. I just need to deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. And I'm wondering if kind of maybe both styles I've heard described here still fit the Deming quote. So like, if like option A I'm hearing is it's developer anarchy or complete freedom, but it's kind of coached through retrospectives and kind of a virtuous loop to naturally limit it, right? And then I kind of seen an option B where you're probably dealing with scale, lots of teams and having some centralization, but since you're not providing one method, you're still giving some freedom, right?
Yeah. Because one method doesn't solve all problems.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You need enough flexibility to solve the problems that happen in enterprise. And I think both are viable if you apply them to the right size of problem. Right. Option one is not viable when you have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 teams. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So, and
it's one of the, but we've been talking about tools, right? But the real thrust of that, really, my understanding of that quote is that you can't set goals without also being someone helping them achieve those goals. That you need to be there as a leader looking for ways to help them solve the problems, not just go, you need to go solve that problem and I'll blame you if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's, and this is maybe where the part that I struggle with, and maybe I'm looking for both your help on it is, so it's like, okay, we have this goal. Let's just say 0 bugs or low bugs and continuous delivery. How do you present a method in a way, or some methods, or in a way that doesn't, like, maybe I'm thinking more of the interpersonal side, like how do you deliver the message in such a way that doesn't squash creativity or experimentation or ownership,
Well, this is something, this is something we had to learn when we started the dojo at Walmart, right? Is how to convince people to try something without handing them a solution. Because if you hand someone a solution, it's your solution. If you help them guide them into a solution, it's their solution. So it's the magician's force, right? It's like, hey, we know some good methods over here, and we know how to demonstrate they're good for the problems that we have. So we identify the problem we have. It's like, okay, yes, this is absolutely a problem. Your stories take more than 2 days to get delivered. There's too much vagueness in there. There's some things that we've used in the past that might help. There's, what we used extensively was behavior-driven development, and we have some information on how to really break that down and show you how you can use BDD to break things down from giant stories so something can get delivered in less than a day, including how we're going to interface with other components along the way and get a disciplined approach to story decomposition so that we know what we're doing and not guessing, and so we can be predictable, right? And this will actually make your life better. You'll have more understanding, and the team will have a shared understanding of what's going on and make code review better. This is what our experience anyway. Would you like to try that? Right? Or if you have a better idea, please let us know, because we'll also document that. Anytime you have a better idea, we want to share that, right? And so that's how you go about it. It's like, of course, you have to have the credibility to say, don't go read that book. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's like, hey, this works. We've seen it work. We can try this and see if it works for you guys too.
Okay, cool. So it's very much like, here's a goal. Here are some methods that we think can help you, but it's ultimately up to you. Make very clear the ownership is on them. All right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just remove the ignorance of the methods.
Yes.
Right? Because if they knew of those methods, they would be using one of them.
Yeah.
Right? Nice. And it's about helping people find things they didn't know. I was doing that not too long ago with a team in the Air Force and talking about feature flags. And they had a problem. And I knew immediately what their problem was as soon as they told me it. And so I had another conversation. I was like, well, let me talk to you a little bit about feature flags. Let's talk through this and see if that might help solve your problem.
Nice.
Right? And I knew it would. I just had to convince them.
Oh yeah, I mean, communication is paramount, especially for things that, for example, if you say, "Hey, we want no bugs in daily releases," right? But anybody's only ever been exposed to waterfall development. It's going to, it's going to sound like a fantasy, right? And so,
well, I mean, honestly, I still think that no bugs is a fantasy.
Yeah. Well, no known bugs, right? No known bugs in production.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And really that's just saying highest priority is bugs. And, if you have any bug reports back, you handle them right away. But yeah, it seems like it's impossible to do when people haven't had the intermediate knowledge between point A and point B. And so you have to slowly build that up, right? But there's also this idea that it's like, okay, well, for people that have done these things in the past, and maybe even teams that manage their own delivery pipelines, and a fully flow efficient team that has no external dependencies can theoretically communicate over a common medium to another team that has full control over their dependencies. Now they might share methods and routines between each team, but you can definitely satisfy that without having maybe the requirements to go down one path or another, as long as the people making the decisions have enough common knowledge, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and that comes down to those teams don't need someone imposing a framework on them to learn how to communicate. They just need to define the interface between the teams and go.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and Chris has a whole set of sayings that he says a lot in our in our organization, and me and some friends gathered together a fake album cover of like all the tracks he says a lot, and one of them on this topic is this is not how he really says it, but this is the joke, is like, oh, you're doing it wrong, but you don't have to listen to me, right?
Yeah.
But
I feel that deeply.
But the way I've seen Chris really deliver it is, he'll come in to a team, he starts mobbing with them, he'll see a problem, and he'll be like, oh, here's a way to do it, but you don't have to do what I'm saying. You can completely ignore, what I'm saying. Right. And I like that catch-all. And some people may not listen to it, so there might be other problems, but it's always good to give people permission to not listen to you explicitly. Well, I like that.
If you shove it at them, they're going to be very resistant. If you do it that way, though, they might ignore it, but it'll be sticking in their head.
Yeah. It's planting a seed rather than, yeah.
And they might circle back around to it. And all of this, anytime you're trying to change people, you're playing the long game. There are no short wins.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's I've had some opportunities to coach other coaches, and I think that's the number one frustration I've seen is when they first start trying to coach, is they get stuck in the short game, and they get really frustrated about the short game, and it's definitely a long game kind of thing.
And just a personal story around that, I spent years, even before I moved from logistics to platform at Walmart, years evangelizing around, hey, we need to do continuous delivery. This will make our lives better. Mostly self-defense. I didn't want it to die because it made our team's life better. And so I needed everybody else to do it too, so that it couldn't go away. Working on initiatives that would take, a year, 18 months to see fruition, right? And talking to people all the time and trying to help. And then when I was leaving, I got all of these Slack messages and emails thanking me for helping, right? And from developers, managers, VPs, how I'd impacted lives, right? And that's really what the coaching thing is all about. If you're a good coach, you're there changing lives. You may not know it. You just have to know that if you're helping one person, you're doing a good job.
Mhm.
Nice. Yeah. And one thing I've also seen help with it is if you do give a method, it's like, oh, here's a method, solicit the group for other methods or present other methods as well. So it just doesn't, like, if you leave a group with only one option,
Yeah.
and if you're also in a position of power, it might, even without saying it, give the impression that this is the only way,
Yeah, and so, this is one of the things I had to learn early on if I wanted to actually deliver, to actually make CD work, because I had to be a better tech lead. And, that's what a tech lead should be doing. Tech lead should not be saying, we're going to do it this way. Tech leads should be saying, hey, here's some ways that we could try. But because you have the position of power, number one, you can't use your veto power or you've already lost the argument. And number two, you have to communicate that you're looking for suggestions. I do that with my team now. It's like, look, this is just the idea I have, right? Let's talk about this. Let's talk it through, because I know my ideas can be improved and our ideas can be better than my idea. And, you really have to be intentional about that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and I've even had someone coach me with, like, don't start with your idea because that might anchor the group. Start with other people's ideas first, and then maybe, if needed, share your idea later. So, those are, and so
I'll
I've
have
heard
to
you
work on that.
I'm still struggling with that a lot, but which is why someone was coaching me on that.
Yeah.
So I've heard you mention frameworks a lot, and I've recently heard of this, scaled framework that I think will solve all the problems in the world. I think that software world is having.
I stumbled on this not long ago. The Scaled Agile DevOps Maturity Framework. It looks like it's a real good way to. The thing I like the most about this framework is how approachable it is. It says right there on the main page, it's enterprise transformation without the risk of culture change. I mean, it's the thing every executive wants. And so I really think that this is going to have legs.
Okay. Is there a certification or anything out there that you can get right now for that?
I believe they're just about to release a certification process where you can go in and get certified as either a practitioner or a fellow. You can be a SAD practitioner or a SAD fellow.
Wow.
There's even one for teams that you can, but all of these, of course, require frequent recertification. The versions of this change all the time, and you have to get recertified when the versions change. But there's one for a team where you can be a depressed team.
Yeah. Well, I know that I always want to be as sad as possible. So the Scaled Agile DevOps sounds like the way to go, to be sad.
No, and honestly, this came from an outgrowth of another project we're working on. We'll talk about here in a minute, where it was the face palming of things that I've seen frequently or I hear about, and just collecting stories of massive anti-patterns that people implement, and the fact that everybody wants an easy button silver bullet and they want enterprise transformation instead of enterprise improvement. So instead of trying to learn a very complex diagram and pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get certified in how to interpret a very complex diagram, just buy a badge from me and you'll be just as well off. And then you'll have a list of things not to do.
So I want to get to why you created this. And I'm sorry, I could tell in the beginning of introducing, you were actually selling it like, you were really selling it as if it were a real thing, and I couldn't help but from laughing. So I apologize about that. But
because that's the way I represent it. I'll see people who are advocating for these agile frameworks that are just waterfall in sheep's clothing. And then I'll say, no, you know what? This has been completely supplanted by this new framework I found, the Scaled Agile DevOps Maturity Framework. You should really look into it. And they'll see lots of parallels. I've had people criticize it. It's like, well, why don't you just do continuous delivery? I'm like, yeah, why don't we do that? And then I've had other people question about whether it was a real thing or not. And I'm like, the fact that you're questioning that means that I've done my job. It's the correct level of parity. Michael Nygaard told me it may not be apparent enough that it's parity. And I'm like, then they can buy a certification from me. It's fine.
You're going to make money. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of got it from what you said there, some of the hints. But why did you create this website and this framework? What was the catalyst? What was the origin story?
How can we document some of the massive anti-patterns that happen all the time in the most absurd way possible? Like this morning before work, I added oh crap, and see, I come up with these awesome names, but the Code Standards Enforcement Team. So the Code Standards Enforcement Team is responsible for dictating indentation depth, tabs versus spaces, whether or not we're using Enterprise Architecture Review Board approved variable and method names, and comment format. And they're also responsible for doing all code reviews, because to improve developer productivity, we don't want them doing code review because that takes time away from coding, right? So we have another team that's completely detached from the context, who's going to do code review for them and make sure they're adhering to the standards.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm looking at it. So fractal-based development.
Fractal-based development, yeah.
Perfect. You want as many feature branches as you can get.
Yeah.
And so CI/CD/ED, continuous isolation, continuous deliberation, eventual delivery. This sounds like a winner.
Yeah, and actually continuous isolation is, I linked to Paul Hammett's website on continuous isolation. That's the #1 resource on the practice. And then also, if you want to be a certified SAD MF practitioner, you really need to go and get your, oh crap, the acronyms are killing me. Hang on. Now I'm getting lost. I apologize. You need to go and get certified as a certified really agile practitioner, which is John Smart's thing. So you can get crap certified. So the baseline is certified really agile practitioner before you can become certified in scaled Agile DevOps maturity framework.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, I it's entertaining and it's fun, but I actually do appreciate kind of the listing of anti-patterns, right? It's kind of like almost like code smells in a way, right?
Yeah.
So if you can name them, then you can identify them when your organization or team is doing them, right? And then maybe there's a refactoring to the better practice or something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things I'm trying to do in here is put in the explanations in a humorous way for why those anti-patterns exist. Like we want a testing team to improve developer productivity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen those teams. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, maybe this is a good segue to the other thing you have is minimum CD. What is that about?
So, I've had personally many conversations with people who talk about doing continuous delivery where they have things like hot fix processes that are outside their normal process, or they're doing continuous delivery, but they use Git flow as a branching pattern, and it's fine. Or they're not using trunk-based development. So anything that's not using trunk-based development, they say they're doing continuous delivery, which all those things are anti-patterns, and other people have had those conversations too. And the fact of the matter is that if you're actually doing continuous delivery, it makes your team's life better. It makes your organization's outcomes better. Solving the problem of real continuous delivery makes you find and fix all of the organizational process scabs you have, right? That you just can't do real CD with those in place. So we have to fix them and improve our value streams. But if we don't set an actual goal for what the minimum bar is for CD, we don't have to solve those problems. We can just claim victory, and we didn't actually climb the hill. And so a bunch of us got together at the virtual bar at DevOps Enterprise Summit, and we're talking about this problem. And this is a group of people that either had never met, only other than we're drinking at the bar, or we'd known each other and crossed paths, but we weren't like close. And we just decided that we're going to take care of something. And so we started just collaborating on a Google Doc around what are the actual bare minimum in every context behaviors that would meet the definition of continuous delivery. And that means whether you're going to a web, to an app store, or and some of the stuff that I'm working on, an air-gapped network on a submarine, but you're still doing continuous delivery. right? How do we do those things, right? And so we laid out the absolute, we were very, very hardcore about this. If someone would propose a practice, we'd say, okay, is this absolutely required, or is this something that's better than the minimum, right? And does it apply to every environment, right? I'm not going to get production feedback from an air-gapped network, so I can't say that we're going to get, operational feedback feeding back in the pipeline, and it's not required. And so we codified all that. And then we just created a signature page and said, okay, let's sign this. And it started off with a Google Doc, and then it moved to GitHub Pages, and then we've since made it a little bit easier to navigate with a static website, also so we could separate the practices from the signatures so that you have more traceability on the practices, because we do accept code reviews on signatures, and we have on occasion updated practices, usually clarifying language. 4 days after we released the initial version of that on GitHub, we had Dave Farley sign on to it after making a small wording clarification that he would have liked to have seen. And so we made that correction. He added a signature, and so he agrees. And we've got Michael Nygaard's signature on there that says, yes, I agree with this. And so the goal there is, again, it's not you're not good enough, you're not doing continuous delivery. It's that this is the minimum bar. Continuous delivery is an engineering practice, not a culture. And this is, it helps drive culture, but it is not a culture, it's an engineering practice. So this is the minimum bar that you need to aim for to claim to do CD, because hitting that bar means you have to solve so many problems. That does improve your culture.
Yeah, I see this as, it's kind of cool origin story, and it's, it's a good bar to have, obviously continuous integration is the first thing you guys have on there. And the application pipeline. So that was basically, that's kind of what you were talking about before, where people don't have backdoors to production, right?
Right. Yeah, there's one path to production, and and solving the problem of I only use my production, my one path to fix production means that I'm optimizing for fixing production and not optimizing for eventual delivery. Right?
Yeah.
But it means that the way you fix production is the safest possible method, because that's the way you also deploy features.
Yeah, I like this idea of just saying, hey, let's focus on continuous delivery, integration, trunk-based development. Because there's definitely a lot of stuff out there, and maybe CI/CD as kind of like a holistic, this might be that goal, I guess, right? And it can guide a lot of decision making and choices down the road, for sure.
And this is what we witnessed, was that what we experienced the very first time we tried to do CD on the very first team that was doing it, was that we had to solve so many problems. This is what we witnessed in the dojo at Walmart. We had to solve so many problems. This is the experience people report all the time, is that to get to real continuous delivery, we have to solve so many problems inside and outside the team. And it just makes everything better and less toilsome. And we have more confidence in what we do because we solve the problems. But if you just plant a flag and saying we're doing CD because we have a pipeline, we have build and deploy automation, and we're on the journey. You're on the journey, but you're not doing continuous delivery. And I applaud you for trying to make things better. But if you don't understand what minimum is, you'll stop too soon because it's hard. And you'll stop because it's hard, but you still say you're doing CD and then wonder why things aren't better.
So kind of the deeper message here is like, where's the where are the common pitfalls with stopping too early and encouraging people to continue until they've hit all of these points, right?
Yeah, you can wind up with stability issues, quality issues. You can wind up with burnout problems. There's all sorts of things that if you aim for the wrong target, it's going to give you bad outcomes. It's actually worse.
So like saying we need to deploy daily, right? That might mean that you have unit tests and trunk-based development and things are coming out, being deployed daily, or that means that Joe is working on this bug fix until midnight so that he can deploy it at 11:59 to get it out there, because otherwise he's going to be written up because he didn't deploy daily, right?
Well, and also on your first example, that would even terrify me, right? Because the pipeline should have all of the, should be certifying the artifact as deployable, and it's the final arbiter of that. So what all tests do we need in our context to certify this artifact as deployable?
Yeah.
Right? And that now we're confident in that. Cool. Now all we have to do is use that quality process we've built into our entire flow and deliver change. Versus, we're just going to deploy daily and then nobody tracks that we're blowing stuff up. But hey, we're deploying daily, so we're doing continuous delivery.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I like it as a kind of like a focus point because, I think what Martin Fowler called semantic diffusion, right? So he talked about it with the word agile itself, the term extreme programming, and I'm sure it's happening to mob programming as well. So I mean, what I was gonna say is what I like with CD, you can kind of feel the same thing happening. So it gives it a focus point of like, here are the bare bone basics, right? There's a lot of material out there, a lot of talk. Here's what this group of people thinks is the bare bones. Maybe that's a good starting checklist.
When we were talking about this on the DevOps Enterprise Summit Slack, and someone pointed to the link to the 24 practices from Dora, and they were like, well, this is already out there. I went, how do I measure binary yes, no, that I'm shifting security left? These are practices that are objectively measurable. We are doing this, we are not doing this. There's no in between, right? There's not vague, it's not principles, it's measurable practice that we can, it's a checklist. Yes, no, we are doing these things, right? And that's what we're really going after, is these are definable practices. Here's the definition for the practice. And we still need to add why. The why is something that we want to work on, right? But we do have references out there. Read these books. Just read the books. But yes, that's the nice thing about CD versus something like Agile or even mob programming, right? Is that there's various permutations, but for CD, that's the minimum. And you can expand on that and have contextual permutations. But this is the non-contextual CD.
Yeah. And when you're advocating for these things, it's nice to have a resource like this, because when you're advocating for things like this, there's a percentage of people that read books, and then there's a percentage of people that listen to podcasts like this one, and there's a percentage of people that like don't do any of that stuff, right? But having multiple mediums in which to communicate these things, just make them aware, plant the seed, then gradually over time you end up influencing in the right direction. Because a lot of this, I think, is about influence in one way or another, and getting teams to all kind of jump on and participate, because it's hard sometimes convincing a large group of people to move in the same direction at the same time without having tons of pushback, right?
Well, and to your point, there's a lot of information out there, and those of us been doing it for a while have to sift through that a lot of information. Yep. And one of our goals was, look, it's one page. It's just one page. Yeah, I mean, there's underlying information and detail behind that one page, but this will get you started. This will get you over the hump, right? And once you get over the hump, then you can start running all kinds of interesting directions. But it's the CD for dummies, basically. I mean, this is the one page.
All right. Well, that sounds very good. We are hitting our time box, and so. Do you have anything to plug or share before we wrap it up?
This is kind of exciting for me. I'm a co-author for a book that was just released called Modern Cybersecurity, and you can find it on Amazon, which is kind of mind-boggling to me.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And then also I have a blog where I do a little bit of my own ranting on Medium. It's BDFINST, because of reasons, at Medium. .medium.com. But it's you can Google it under 5-minute DevOps, and so it's just a series of things. My most recent post was talking about how in the world of continuous delivery, people don't understand what production is. Production is staging is down. Production incident staging is down. The development instance down. My laptop is offline. We have a production incident because we can't deliver.
Oh, interesting. I like it. Yeah, and we'll put the links to those resources in the show notes. So I just wanted to ask our audience, if you know anybody that maybe their environment costs are exploding because too many technologies are being incorporated all at the same time, or maybe somebody is trudging through a certification that is really getting under their skin, or maybe somebody needs a little nudge into a good continuous delivery journey. Then you might want to share this episode with them. And so sharing the episodes really helps. And with that, if you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell and all that, then we will see you all next time. And thank you, Bryan, for being with us.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun being back.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.